Welcome to this episode of the Martial Truth Podcast, teaching self-defense in your classes. Before we move forward, please click that like, share, subscribe button. We've begun to post more shorts, which is bringing more attention to the channel, which is great. Consider buying some products or becoming a monthly member. The monthly membership gives you access to videos that other people don't get to see. You also, everything on the monthly members, the paying the monthly fee, all those videos then are commercial free. So you don't have to watch commercials. The podcast is commercial free. You get the podcast a few days early. All right, so if you want to consider doing that. Appreciate all of you. I mean, we're slowly creeping up on our subscribers and greatly appreciated. Going to be having a lot of good interviews coming up and some other things. But today I thought we'd talk about teaching self-defense. So recently I posted a video of some knife defense I was doing in New York. And, let me preface by saying, if you're facing someone armed with a weapon, you've got a problem. All right. You've got a problem. He has a huge advantage. All right. Whether it's a knife, a club, a gun, a chain, a guy picks up a chair, a guy picks up an object from the street, a rock. It doesn't matter. If he has a weapon and you don't, you're at an extreme disadvantage. However, does that mean then we don't teach that? We don't teach any defense against the knife because he's got the knife and that's really hard and it's going to be very difficult to overcome that. I think that's a huge mistake. If you're running a martial arts school and you're claiming to teach self-defense, and the only fighting you're teaching is karate sparring or taiji push hands, okay, or judo randori, let me wake you up right now and let you know none of that is real fighting. None of it. That's a training vehicle for you to develop some skills that you can hopefully bring into the real fight. So how should we train self-defense? Well, one, you should compile a list of various attacks. Pushes, grabs, headlocks, rear chokes, hair pulls. Every kind of attack you can think of, you have to come up with a viable technique that will work against that attack. And there's a lot of them. Patrick McCarthy has a list of the habitual acts of physical violence. I have my own list. So again, you can come up with a lot of it. All right. Also, you have to have techniques against the knife, the gun, a chain, a baseball bat, a club. Okay. You have to have techniques for when you're sitting in a chair. You have to have techniques for if you wind up on the ground. You have to have techniques for if you're up against a wall. So again, these are all things you have to be, and again, you're not going to go over everything all the time. Okay, you only have so many hours in a class. However, though, if you really think about all these different things, your classes can be really good because now you're covered. You have a lot of material. And you go through them. And then certain techniques you'll do more because they're the more common attacks. And that you'll have to do your own research. When I was in London, they were telling me people like to grab somebody in a headlock. London also has a major knife problem. A lot of people carrying knives, a lot of people getting stabbed. All right, so, I was a little surprised because in the States now, yeah, the headlock's an attack. You'll see people do it, but it's not a very common attack here anymore. Obviously, knife attacks happen all the time. I think that's a worldwide thing, unless you're in a country like Japan. But even in Japan, you'll see stabbings. China happens all the time. So again, the idea though that someone responded to my knife defense video by saying, "Well, I don't teach that because I think it's very difficult." No, of course it's difficult. All right. Last night in my class, I had two of the students working on knife defense, right? I had two students here. It was a quiet class. They were working on knife defense for 35 minutes and drilling them on certain techniques, certain principles, So when you're teaching self-defense, you also have to understand the principles of self-defense. Principle number one is, okay, the secret to self-defense is being able to take your fingers and drive them into somebody's eyeballs. That's one of the secrets. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means you're willing to do whatever needs to be done to win. If that means you have to bite the person, if you have to gouge their eyes out, whatever you have to do to win a real life and death encounter. He's got the knife, he's got something, now you're struggling for it. This is not about being nice, okay? And like I say all the time, show me the video where someone can take a poke in the eye. I can tell you now the video doesn't exist. I know I see guys taking punches in the throat. I suspect those two, to be honest. The kick in the testicles, there's a trick to that. Okay, again, show me the video where the guy takes a full strike to his eyeball. It doesn't exist. You know, like I've said before, I get a piece of dust in my eye, it feels like the world's coming to an end. So you have to be able to do that. Now, the problem is a lot of people say, oh yeah, I do that, no problem. But then they're incapable of doing it. So in my dojo, when we train self-defense, we're constantly going for the eyes, but we're careful about it. We make sure no one gets poked in the eyes, okay? We do a lot of close-in work. The attacks are dynamic, okay? The person's standing there, he does the attack, you have to deal with it. Initially, when we train self-defense in my dojo, we allow the person to get us in that particular hold. Bear hug, front choke, rear choke, whatever it is, okay? We let them grab us, and you have to be able to actually get out of it if the person manages to get you in the hold. Okay, so now they've got you in the hold. You get out of it, you work that, you drill that, you drill that. You've gotten pretty good at that. Okay, now later on, as your ability goes up, we say, okay, now don't let the person get you in the hold. So now, as the guy attacks you from the rear, and he tries to put you in a bear hug, you try not to let him complete the bear hug, and you go right into your technique. And that's the same with someone that comes up to push you, someone that comes up to grab you or grab your arm, grab your hair. You don't let them get there. Don't let them complete their attack. You immediately deal with it, all right? So that's one aspect, all right? Another aspect is how to train the actual self-defense techniques. Well, basically, you're working facing each other, and you try different grabs and different holds. And again, use common sense, all right? You know, we don't work in my dojo on getting out of a figure four leg lock. I just don't think some predator is going to be putting you in a figure four leg lock, okay? So again, the attacks the predators do, that's what we want to work on, all right? That's what we cover. So again, we can work on reactions too. So another thing we do in the dojo is we have someone face away, and then we have a line behind them. And if we have a lot of people, we may have two lines. And then the person goes up and attacks them from the rear, and they have to deal with the attack. And now you're getting different size people attacking. One guy maybe grabs the bear hug a little higher. One guy maybe grabs the rear choke a little different. So now that person has to make adjustments to deal with that particular attack. So again, forcing that person to realize that people can subtly attack differently with the same attack, and you have to figure out, well, how do I make the adjustment that my technique will work to conquer this particular technique I'm trying to defeat. So you can do that. We'll do the same thing from the front, taking turns. Another thing we'll do is we do a circle drill where we have one person in the middle and we have the 8 points around covered. The instructor, who's ever running the circle, is in the back, so the person can't see me. I nod to someone and they attack on that angle. So now, and maybe instead of the bear hug being from the rear, now it's from the side. Instead of the punch being from the front, now maybe the guy throws a punch to the side. So now the person in the middle, they have to make their adjustments and deal with that. So again, forcing them to think outside the box a little bit. Okay, we've mostly done front on attacks or rear attacks, but now, okay, here's one coming from the angle. All right. And again, sometimes I'll nod to two people. So maybe the person in the behind grabs them in the bear hug. The other person from the front comes in to attack from the front. Now, how do they deal with that? A lot of times what we'll do is we'll hand one person a knife in the circle and we'll hand the other person a gun. And then after everybody goes once, we say, okay, switch it up. And everybody moves to different positions. What a lot of times do is they pass the knife off to someone else. They pass the gun off to someone else. So now the person in the middle doesn't know who's got the gun or knife. All right. Now, you have to use common sense. The person's back to you. Okay, there's no punching in the back of the head. Of course, that could be a legitimate technique, but this is a training drill. All right. So, we try to do attacks from the rear. All right. We don't do a lot of attacks with kicks, although we would do some, but we do more self-defense kicks, like more of a soccer style kick where the guy comes up and tries to kick you, those types of things. All right. So again, we might have the person in the middle do 3 or 4 rounds, and then we switch it up and the next person goes in. All right. And again, when you have 9 people, because that's usually what's required, and you can do it with less. If you don't have all 8 points covered, that's fine. Right. What you do then is you only maybe do 1 round each. All right. Depending on how long you think it'll take. All right. So that's another aspect you can do. You can also do an aspect where, in terms of knife defense, initially we work the technique static. The person comes in, he's not trying to multiple stab, which is what we're going to work up to. Okay, we start with the single stab to get the person moving to build confidence. Then eventually the guy's going to really try to stick you. You have to be able to defend against it, all right? Whether it's a slash, whatever. So we'll do what we call like kind of a knife randori, for lack of a better term, where the one guy has the knife eventually, and now you just have to defend against it. Again, within reason. We can't be poking each other in the eyes in the dojo. We can't be hitting each other in the throat. But the person who's got the knife, if I trap the knife hand and I strike him in the throat 3 times, well, he's got to realize, okay, he would have been hurt. Okay. I hit you in the throat with full power, you've got a problem. And how do I know that? Because I've hit a lot of people in the throat. And every time I hit them in the throat, they went in one place, and that was down. So when you hit someone in the throat, it's devastating. Devastating. Okay. So again, joint locks are great. We focus on the joint locks because you want to control the weapon. You want to control the weapon. Whatever weapon you're working on against, you want to make sure that when the technique is finished, you've gained control of the weapon. You don't leave it in your training partner's hand. You want that to become part of the drill. You take him down, you stomp him, you finish him. Now you just get up, he's still got the knife in his hand. Nope. No. You always take the weapon. You always take the weapon out of the hand to make sure you have it. You have to tell your students, there's a good chance you're going to be cut. A good chance you're going to be cut. Okay. Start thinking about it now. Accept it. Realize it's something you may have to deal with. There's a chance you may be shot. Okay. Again, though, what are your options? If the guy has got a gun on you and he's telling you over and over again he's going to kill you, I'm taking him at his word. I could tell you now, you pull a gun on me and it's on me, I'm taking it from you. I'm taking it from you. And maybe I do get shot, but I'm taking it from you, and you're going to pay a heavy price. Again, a person using a weapon against you is attempting to use deadly physical force. That means you're allowed to use deadly physical force against them to save your life or the life of somebody else. All right, so keep those things in mind. So in teaching self-defense too, you want to be very knowledgeable on the self-defense laws in your particular state. Okay, so instructors, you're a professional martial artist. You have a dojo or you're teaching classes. Okay, well then you have a job. Your job is you need to know the self-defense laws. All right, you guys watching in other countries, okay, you need to know your self-defense laws. All right, you can't be saying, oh yeah, now you take the knife and while you got him down, you stab him to eliminate the threat. Okay, I think you better do some research. You better make sure that you're okay with that. Okay. Basically in general, it's always what the reasonable man would do. I take the guy down, the knife goes flying out of his hand. Now he's no longer got the weapon. Now I stomp him, I start banging his head against the ground, and I kill him. Was that reasonable after I'd already disarmed him? Probably not. Now you're going to have a problem. Okay. You can get self-defense insurance. So I'm a member of the USCCA, the United States Concealed Carry Association. I'm not advocating for them, just mentioning I'm a member. Basically, I'm covered for any self-defense situation I'm involved in. Again, it has to be ruled self-defense, not that I committed a criminal act. This is why you have to know the self-defense laws. Look them up, know the laws, okay? You know, can't tell people to carry a weapon, and it turns out that weapon's illegal. Okay, you're a professional martial arts instructor. You've got to know this stuff, all right? It's as simple as that, okay? You know, normally I go out, I'm carrying a firearm. I have a knife, always, okay? What have I used the knife for in my, almost 62 years on the planet? Usually to cut stuff, right? Never used it in a fight, but I have it there as another weapon, as a potential backup. If for some reason, maybe I'm struggling with my gun and I need to use it. So I'm always trying to think ahead, be one step ahead of the criminal. In your self-defense, people have to learn to function close in. Literally, I say it all the time, self-defense is kissing distance. You're right on top of the person. You see most people I see doing martial arts techniques, a lot of times they're going backwards. You can't go backwards. You squeeze out the space. 99 out of 100 times the opponent is expecting you to back up. When you move in, it throws him off. Now, by the time he realizes what happened, you've eliminated him as a threat. Okay? What does eliminating him as a threat in self-defense means? It means he's no longer capable of harming you or someone else at that time. It's important, if you are engaged in a self-defense situation, that if the opponent's incapacitated, let's say he's unconscious. Okay, you get on that phone, you call the police. You tell him you've been attacked. The guy's here, he's unconscious. Please get a police car here and an ambulance. You should probably go get yourself checked out. You may think you're not hurt. And then as you get to the hospital, you might realize you can't move your neck, your back hurts. Maybe you got hit without realizing it. Now you got a cracked rib or something. Get yourself checked out, all right? And again, press charges, all right? Press charges, all right? You want to get out ahead of a self-defense situation. You don't want to think, oh, well, we just got into a little scuffle. The guy attacked me and he walked away. Because now if he walks to the police precinct and he files the report first, you've got a big problem. Now you look like the bad guy. These are all things, as a professional martial arts instructor, you should be explaining to your students. And if you're not, not good. Okay? The turning up the heat. Okay, so again, working self-defense. Well, can the students resist the joint lock? Not in the beginning. There should be no resistance in the beginning. Later on, the person can begin to resist a little bit. That's how you pressure test your joint locks. However, you don't want it to get so out of control where people are getting hurt. Again, we don't want to do anything in training that causes us injury. Of course, are there going to be injuries? Of course there are. I'm leading the class through basics one night. I'm doing it a while. I'm doing kicks. I'm warmed up. I'm good to go. I throw a kick and I pull a hamstring. No one's near me. Did it totally myself. Of course there's going to be injuries, but we want to limit that chance. When you start mixing it up and you start allowing a little bit of resistance, it can get overboard and someone gets hurt. The person who's resisting the technique being done to them needs to understand they have a role to play. They're playing the role of the criminal, okay? They're not looking to counter with a fancy technique. Criminals don't do that. It starts simple with, let's say we're working the wrist lock. The person goes to do the wrist lock. Me, as the person they're doing to, I don't feel like they're really holding my hand tight. I just yank my hand out. I just yank it out. Now, if they're holding right and I go to yank it out, I shouldn't be able to do that. And then also they may realize if I go to yank it out, they have to make an adjustment. So these are the things you can start to do to add a little bit more of a layer of realism within the self-defense training. I've been to a lot of karate schools. A lot of karate schools are not doing a lot of self-defense. They do kata and they do sport sparring. I've never seen a fight that looks like a sport sparring karate match, ever. Okay? Fights don't look like that. Okay? Fights are brutal, in close, nasty, dirty. Your life's on the line. You have to win. All right? So I don't do sports sparring in my dojo. And people say to me, well, why don't you do that? Well, because it builds bad habits for real fighting. So I don't do it. You're not allowed to go for the knees. You're not allowed to do open hand techniques. Most dojos now, you're not allowed to go to the back. Okay. All right. Yeah. Again, you obviously can't do joint locks in sparring, right? So we do everything close in. The person attacks, the person has to be able to counter. Again, in the beginning, very cooperative. As it goes on, it becomes less cooperative. The training becomes harder. It becomes more serious, okay? Again, all within reason so no one can get hurt. I've said it before, you cannot reproduce real combat in a martial arts school. And right now I got some guys sitting watching going, well, in our dojo, we do full contact fighting. Okay. Just stop. Your full contact fighting is not combat. Okay? It's not. All right? Tell me you do full contact fighting where you allow strikes to the eyes, strikes to the throat, kicks to the groin, where you allowed kicks to the knee to break the knee. And then I'll say, okay, then you're okay. But then those two people better sign waivers saying that, yeah, I know I could possibly be killed here. Because again, if you're striking properly, if you're doing certain techniques, those techniques can be lethal. All right? You can't do that within training. Okay? Again, computer teenagers, these people all have jobs. They don't want to get hurt. So it has to be within reason. So you need to understand that you're working within the realm of a fake violence. It's not real violence. I'll just illustrate with a quick story. I'm at a seminar and I'm leaning down because I finished my seminar and two little kids came up to me. They were probably about 8 years old, and they wanted to ask me a question. And I always make time for people. You ask me a question, I'm going to make time for you to answer it. Okay, so I'm answering the question, and some guy yokes me from behind as I'm talking to the kids and yanks me back. He attacks me for real. And without hesitation, I did a technique. And he hit the ground hard, and then I made him scream. Okay, I applied a joint technique and made him scream. But I didn't break his arm, and I didn't hurt him. But I let him know that kind of behavior wasn't acceptable. Okay. The funny thing is after I did it, I jumped right back up and went back to talking to the kids like nothing had happened. And the kids' eyes were like this, and they looked at me and said, "Sensei, can you teach us that?" But the interesting thing was, lunch break at the seminar, I had a whole bunch of my students there, and a whole bunch of my students had seen that. Now, two of my students there were police officers that I worked with. They'd seen me fight in combat. So for them, it was like, no big deal. But for my non-law enforcement students who had never seen me fight for real, had only seen me in the dojo, my most senior black belt said, "Hey, Sensei, got to be honest, seeing you move like that was scary. Like, it was scary. Like, we've never seen you move like that." And I said, "Well, now you've seen me move for real." So I'm just telling you this because moving for real is very different however you're going to move in the dojo. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And we'll get into that maybe in another video when we talk about self-defense again. But please, if you're claiming you're teaching self-defense, well, then you have to teach it. I've hopefully given you some ideas. All right. If you want to reach out for me, I probably could send you my list that I have of attacks. Patrick McCarthy's list is around on the internet. You can see it. And it's important, okay? It's important to keep the arts real. And we want people, God forbid, that one time in their life they're attacked and need it, that it works for them, all right? So hope you've enjoyed this one, all right? I haven't spoken in a while. I figured I'd get back to this. Next week we'll have probably another interview, which will be good. Please hit the like, share, subscribe button. We've got merch. Consider getting merch. Consider becoming a monthly member. I appreciate all of you. And I'll see you in the next podcast. Thanks. Take care.